Maybe.
Okay. Good evening. It's 7:09 p.m. This is the remote meeting of the Financial Planning Committee. This open meeting of the Financial Planning Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into the law on March 29, 2023. All members of the Financial Planning Committee are allowed and encouraged participants and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows Financial Planning Committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public's encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on this agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. So let's start with a roll call confirming member access. Susan Sartori.
Present.
Ken Picard.
Present.
John Ray.
Present.
Scott Stockland.
Present.
And John Rappa, present. We have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any members of the public? If so, if you'd use the raise hand function on the Zoom, we will field any questions. Not seeing any, we will proceed from there. So committee members, you've all had a chance to review the draft of the report. Yes?
Yes.
No?
Is that a question? The answer is yes.
Question.
Yes.
Okay, good. There are some parts of the report I highlighted in yellow. Scott, I got your comment, which is one of the things I was looking for. Thank you for that clarification. Question for the committee: do we want to kind of talk through each page of the report and then get into a discussion before we vote, or the opposite? What does the committee think?
I suggest we go through the report, whatever way everybody wants to go through it, and deliberate on what the report is or isn't, and
okay,
how much we do or don't want to change anything, and then take a vote.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen and put the report up. Hopefully you've got a copy with you. Here we go. Everyone see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Scott advised me that his term expires April of 2027. I'll make that change. I'm going to make changes on my own hard copy here rather than on the screen. I'm a little more efficient with that if you all don't mind. So can I ask, are there any comments or questions or suggestions on the first page?
No, for me.
Not for me. It's pretty clear.
Okay. There's a table that lists committee activities. These are the things that our committee has done relative to either participation at community information sessions or overviews and discussions. For example, the chief presented some of his capital needs back in March. He gave us a presentation on that. There are on-site reviews. We went to the fire station in March, of the proposed site, which certainly I did. And then we had a tour of the fire station in June. So there's a number of sessions here kind of illustrating that. We've had multiple opportunities to delve into aspects of the project as it evolved from late last year, beginning of this year until now. Have I missed anything?
No.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
So the remainder of page 2 is background general comments. Some of this is language we had in our report from back in April for the recent town meeting. Some of this is boilerplate. Any comments or suggestions on this language on page 2?
None.
I have none.
Scott, John?
None for me.
Okay. Scott?
Nope. Looks good.
Okay. Starting on page 3, and some of the exhibits that follow it are supporting about what is the fire station project, and this will culminate into what the article is that is being put before the town. So the information I have in here, I assembled from various meeting minutes and some of the YouTube presentations. I corroborated this with what was on there, and then some feedback from a couple of you on some of this. So there's, the fire station building committee, what their mission is, that the existing fire station is 50 years old. What was the discussion of the process relative to why did we get to where we are in terms of the feasibility of renovating the existing Pierce Street station, et cetera. So a couple of you gave me some feedback on that, which I massaged into here. What the last thing on this page says, as a result of that process, it decided that a new fire station was the best option. Any other comments or questions on this page?
I loved
have
all
a
the
question.
information you,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Sue. I'm sorry.
I loved all the information you included, and I'm really happy to see the addition of the emergency medical services now represents 68% of, I really liked that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, Ken?
So John, I don't know if it's somewhere else in the report and I missed it, but in your second paragraph, you talked about it was designed to house 2 staff members and 10,000 residents. What's the current proposed station designed for? How many staff members, what population, how many years out is it good for?
So the station, the proposed station will be able to house 14 people, and that's in each of 3 shifts. So the facilities on the second floor, bathroom facilities, shower facilities, bunk rooms will be able to support that many. And so that is more than the department has today. The department has 23 full-time staff across 3 shifts. Second part of your question, Ken, was what?
How far out is it projected to be able to
Okay.
support the town? And what population?
The committee has designed this building to last 40 or 50 years. So there's growth capability in the apparatus bay configuration, allowing for the fact that over time, certain fire equipment has gotten larger in size. And so as equipment is replaced, if equipment does get larger, the apparatus bay area is big enough to support that. That's number one. Number two, the administrative offices and the sleeping quarters are large enough to accommodate an increase in staff should that occur as we go from here. And then I don't think the fire station committee quantified what the town population would be in X amount of years. I don't think they got to that.
I'm just trying to correlate to what you have in that paragraph to make sure it's somewhere else in the report as clearly as you stated in that paragraph. It's going to house X amount of firefighters. It's going to take for another 50 years. It's going to cover our needs. And, you had the notation about residents. I'm just trying to follow that protocol that you set up.
Okay. All right. So then we'll add.
And I don't know if this is the
No.
location
We'll add
for
in
it.
there.
It may be somewhere else in the report.
Maybe a little further down. We'll add to this some dialogue on accommodating future growth in more detail.
Yeah.
On page 5, you actually have the building will contain 6 triple deep apparatus bays sized to accommodate it. Some of the information Ken's asking for might be well served on that particular page.
I saw the thing for the apparatus. I didn't see about personnel.
Yeah.
Or longevity of the building.
I'll expand on that. Okay.
Thank you.
John, any comments or observations?
Not for me.
I have one question, John. So regarding the section here that talks about renovating the current fire station on Pierce Street,
Right.
is there a cost associated with that review?
There was, prior to the fire station building committee that's in place today, that's paneled today, there was a feasibility study done prior to COVID. I was not involved in that. There was some cost benefits done through that study. There was an outside design firm brought in at that time. I may or may not have that information. Do you think that's important to add here? Which, for example, if it costs, 10 million to renovate or 30 million to renovate, again, if there was a number, it's pre-COVID. So whatever the dollar amount was, isn't apples to apples today. So Scott, what do you think? What do you suggest?
I'm just curious because I do recall back when we looked years ago at the school Algonquin, right? I believe that there were two options that were presented to the town. It was the build versus the ad rent.
Right.
Town voted on it that way, and I'm just wondering, I'm just curious. I'm not against the fire station. I'm just curious, and I think people will be asking like, well, why can't we do this? And we should be prepared to answer those questions. I'm sure it's going to come up at town meeting.
I will go back and look and check with Dawn Rand and the chief who are on that prior committee. And if something was quantified, I'll see where it logically fits in here. But these dot points here towards the bottom of the page are the main reasons the renovation option wasn't chosen.
Yes, and one of them says the cost to purchase adjacent properties. Someplace there might be a report that has that number in it.
And I'll attempt to find that.
Okay.
So it would be the cost to renovate or demolish the existing station, acquire adjacent properties, and make it a bigger footprint. I'll try to find that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the challenge that you might face, and pardon me, through the chair, John,
Please.
I think the challenge you might have is that was done so long ago that the cost, the comparison of the costs is going to be so far off from
yeah, and I hear you.
Today.
I hear you. So let me see what I can find, and if I can find some number, if it makes logical sense, or try to massage some language in there. Because there have been a number of questions through the fire station building committee meetings where there's been public comment and the community sessions and community info sessions about the 2019 study that was done of 2019 numbers, and why was it this number then? Why is it this much then? So the committee has attempted to answer that multiple times. So let me go take a look and see where it makes logical sense.
Okay.
But you're right. I think some of this may come up at town meeting. Hopefully, by the time we get to October, people have seen enough information. By the way, Tim McInerney has said that this report, since it is a Prop 2.5 article and a vote, will be sent to every resident of the town. And I think the appropriations also, and maybe something else. So this may be the first time some people in town have seen this. Hopefully it's not, but the committee has attempted through multiple ways to get community information out there and engagement.
Yeah. And then just a quick follow-up question. There's a lot of buzz around now about the purchase of the old fire station.
Right.
And it sort of makes you reflect on the fact that we're kind of leaving empty fire stations around different parts of the town. And so I wonder if there are plans for this building once
the existing Pierce Street fire station. Scott?
Yeah.
There is a one of the YouTube videos that's on the website on this addresses that. I haven't looked at it. I know it's been brought up by the master plan committee, and is a question of, what can the town convert it to something? Can it be sold? It's not linked to this project, but I would say if people have strong feelings about it, then it should be brought to the attention of the master plan committee.
Okay. All right.
I want to piggyback on what Scott said. I think it's appropriate to put a number in there for renovation, even though it's old. You reference the report and say, in this report of 2019, this is what the cost is. And then on the
Okay.
floor, you can answer the question about it being updated or not.
Okay, all right. And I presume there will be questions, but we'll get to that. Okay. Any
And
other?
I think, yeah, just on that vein, I think something that I haven't fully had an answer to that I've asked in different angles, and maybe I'm just not very clear, but I think it'd be helpful to know, like, what is the cost of the fire station as proposed versus the cost of a fire station that met our needs. And this does meet our needs, but without a clock tower, without 2 roof monitors, without a hose drying station, and then
I don't know if, first of all, I don't think that's within our purview to answer. That's number one. It would be the building committee. And I think you asked the question the other day, and the designers came back and said, there's no way to say, okay, the clock tower costs $10. Each of the 6 apparatus bays cost $12. There's no way of dissecting that. But I would leave that to the committee to answer should there come up at town meeting.
yeah, and I think from my role in financial planning committee, I think it's an important question to answer so people understand
Yep.
the decisions we're making to put these options onto the fire station. I'm fully supportive of fire station. And what if a clock tower cost $25 million of the 44? And I don't think that's true. But I think the fact that I can't credibly answer that,
Yeah.
and I can't get that information, is a big concern.
Okay.
The way I view this coming right now is just, we took a design and we just built to a design, and that's where I think some of the tension is.
Okay. So a couple things from my perspective, sitting on that committee for more than a year, observing the evolution of the design and the design documents, et cetera, and feedback from the community. The main marching orders for the committee was to build a fire station that meets the operational readiness of the department, that protects the health and safety of the staff. That's number one. Everything else came behind it. Aside from a clock on the face, which people on the design review committee and planning board and other people in the community said would be nice, there is no fluff in this building. It does allow for growth, but there's nothing there that doesn't meet the operational requirements of the fire department.
And there's no disagreement. And I've been at those meetings, and I wish there was more community involvement. I'm there, and there's 8 people, and they're very nice 8 people. But our town's bigger than 8 people.
Yes, agreed.
So as a person that has a fiduciary responsibility to the town on the financial planning committee, I think about those things, right? And I think about a hose drying station is not standard in all fire stations that are being built right now.
If you go to the existing,
I can finish.
You go to the existing fire station, we have one.
Just so these things would be nice to understand, so we can communicate them well to the town. And that's just a statement. I'm not asking us to derail anything, but these are the questions as a financial planning committee I have not had the answers to. And so I just want to just as some of the other conversation around the cost to improve the current fire station, I just wonder about what would be, and I don't propose this, but what's the minimally viable fire station we could build that meets all the needs you described in your opening versus the things we're choosing to invest in. And that's just a blanket statement.
Okay. Did you get a tour of the fire station yet with the chief?
I have seen the fire station. I have not gone to the chief, and I will. And by the way, there's no disagreement that we need a fire station in my conversation, but I have seen it with my teenage son 2 years ago, but I will go. I do intend to go again.
Right. I think if you go now with a different set of eyes, you will look at things more critically in terms of the setup they have, the quarters they have, the amount of equipment, the lack of storage space, among other things. But I would urge you to do that, since the rest of our committee has done that.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad the rest of the committee has done it. And I will do that by the time we vote, and I do appreciate that. But I do want to just stand strongly behind my statement I just made, because the question I've asked has not been answered.
Okay, I will make sure at the next fire station building committee, I want to add something to their agenda, that they go through a good set of slides in preparation for town meeting. There's a couple of decks many of us have seen, I want to make sure they got the right amount of information on the decks that cover some of the types of questions you're asking, among other things, and the information we have contained herein.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
If I may jump in, John,
Yeah.
to John, I think it's not helping you by just calling it a clock tower. That is a multifunctional structure, that part of the building. It is for hose drying, and also helps the firefighters train to work in stairwells and also get people down through stairwells. So that is definitely an asset they have, and they should have in any type of building, so they can train in those conditions. The clock is an aesthetic feature on the outside. I'm sure just the clock is a small amount of money. I'm sure they can take that out to take out for the cost, not remove it from the building, but take it out for the cost. They wouldn't know what the cost is. But being able to dry the hoses and also be able to practice in stairwells, I think, is a fundamental feature of that town hall. I mean, that fire station.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
If I may.
please.
I think the things that Jonathan is asking for, what a lot of people are asking about. And part of it's the process. You've been going through it for the last year or so. And I've just really introduced myself to the whole process, and since probably last February, this past February. What I've realized in this process right now is that we're already this far along because a group of people listened to the fire chief and the people there for the needs. They worked with the architects to build a building that met those needs. A group of people worked in earnest for the last year developing a building that meets the needs, started the estimation of the costs, and made decisions that they thought it was worthy of the cost. Whether or not those costs are something that other people really want to pay for is a different matter. But my understanding of this process is the way that it is now, I don't believe that can be changed without a significant cost.
You're correct. The designs have been put together. They've been reviewed and approved by the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeal, Conservation Commission, Design Review Committee, and those have been filed with the town and signed off. So any changes going forward from here to add or change to that would be a change order. The committee's about to launch the process to start pre-qualifying subcontractors and potentially go out to a bid on this after town meeting. So after the town approves the dollar amount, a general contractor will know that A, it's been approved by the town, and we will go out to several bidders, and the town has to accept the lowest bid from the general contractors who bid on the project. So any changes to the building design, et cetera, would have to take place after the fact.
No,
and have some or significant ramifications in terms of the process that we have been through and would have to go through.
And if the town approves the dollar amount,
Right.
I heard when, but I think it is if. How much cost have we incurred on this? I think I was reading, I don't know if it's the most recent, but $1 million or so of sunk cost so far in design.
No, it's more than that. So the town approved a town meeting, I think it was roughly 2017, I could be wrong. The purchase of the property, 61 to 65 West Main Street and subsequently 10 Monroe Street. They approved in that same capital proposal the hiring of the owner's project manager, which is Colliers, and the hiring of a design firm, which is HKT Architects. It's $3.5 million to cover all of those things I just described. Now that's sunk cost already.
Yeah.
My
so to get-
understanding is that the budget that is left from the money that has been appropriated for this is only in the tens of thousands.
It's zero.
It's
Now
zero.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's fully expended, yes.
Okay.
that
I
means
mean,
Thanks,
there's remaining obligations on contracts, but it's fully obligated. It's
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we move to the next page? There's more meat on this. So this continues stating that the Main Street and Monroe Street properties were acquired in 2022. We selected an OPM, we selected a design firm. I have this chart of activities that have occurred, and I put the number of meetings there. And the question is, does the committee think that the number of meetings adds some weight to this, or is valuable? Otherwise, we could take it out. But they met with the Appropriations Committee, we had Community Information Systems, Conservation Committee, Construction Document Review. These are all the activities that the Fire Station Committee has conducted and gone through in the last, year and change, almost a year and a half.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
the only reason I could see for wanting to have it is if the architects went to every meeting, that was a cost that was incurred.
I will tell you, looking at this, the architects have been on just about all of these meetings and committee sessions.
And they charge for being there.
Yes, they do. They're on the clock,
Okay.
as they were with us last week. Can I continue? So I have a session on the design overview, which gets into high-level activities. A program development, schematic cost estimate, design, and reconciliation was done with 2 professional estimators. Construction documents were developed. And the construction documents, if you looked at the blueprints, cover all aspects of this, the foundation, the walls, the trusses, the living quarters, the mechanicals, all of that stuff is in quite detail. And again, that was developed by the design firm and presented to the planning board, the design review committee, etc., in some of those meetings. Most importantly, on the next page, there was discussion and feedback, like we're doing today, on various aspects of the building and the site design. And so building design elements, the driveway cuts, the geothermal system and air conditioning, parking lot, all of these things were discussed at numerous meetings, including feedback at community information sessions and public comments at committee meetings between December of last year and as recently as last month. And this says including but not limited to. So if something was brought up that I didn't get here, I think that's a broad enough thing, but I think the public can see that a lot of things were brought up that are meaningful. Any comments on that table?
Not for me.
Okay. So somewhere on this page, I will massage in there, based on your suggestion, how the new fire station is going to be adaptive to the future growth of the town and the department. I'll work that in here somewhere. I think it logically makes sense here. I think, Ken, you brought that up.
Yeah.
Um,
And then a question, John, I'm not sure. And how much have we thought about or taken consideration of like the residential versus industrial load of the need of the fire station based on, the growth the town has and the current footprint of the town? Is that going to sort of like the math of how many firefighters, how big it is, those sort of things, or not?
I don't know if I have a perspective on that. I know it's possible in the feasibility committee work that was done up to 2019 that may have been brought up. But feedback from the town is that, commercial industrial development is kind of plateaued. Jason, perspective on that?
I'm sorry, what was the comment? I missed.
I was saying that, relative to the growth of the town, it seems I've heard that commercial and industrial development is plateaued in the town. We don't expect any more large commercial development.
Correct. We don't have any large tracts of undeveloped commercial industrial zone land at this point. So that's
Okay.
that's the common thinking, is that when we analyze our new growth potential for the future, we're probably at a state of near build out for the town.
And just thinking back the 5 years to 2019, if that's when it was done, I mean, we've had substantial amount of industrial investment in the town. If that was part of the consideration of the size, the need, or if that was part of the calculus or not.
My understanding, John, is that came into the conversations then, and it was updated when this committee restarted last year relative to, okay, is this building operationally sized to sufficiently support the town? And so the building got slightly larger to accommodate larger equipment, the possibility of larger equipment in the future, and more firefighters and responders. So the new design, the current design, has been sized to address that, to have some uphead for growth.
Thank you.
Okay. So I put a picture and 3 diagrams into the report showing the current rendering that has been shown and depicted. I believe this is on the website. The proposed design will be 30,850 gross square feet on 2 floors. This is the diagram as of July, including some trees and shrubbery and the wall behind it. And then there's the schematics of the first and second floor and the site plan and the subsequent pages. I don't know, again, as I mentioned earlier, that it's feasible. Some people in town may be seeing this for the very first time. So I decided to put enough information in there to give them an overview and to show them that, we looked at this with a level of detail in mind. When the project is presented at town meeting, I assume that these types of diagrams will be discussed and presented by the Fire Station Building Committee, and any comments from the town will be addressed accordingly. And again, these diagrams you see here have been developed by the design firm, and they've been in slides the committee has used, which is where I borrowed them from. So this part of the report starts to talk about the costs, and the committee has identified hard and soft costs. There's information online about this, the construction, the soft costs outside the scope of the general contractors. So currently, total project costs are estimated not to exceed $44,119,000. Now I've got the comment in there about minus the geothermal rebates. It brings it down to 42 million and change, 42.1. And I'm concerned that if we start throwing the geothermal rebates in there, people are saying, well, why aren't you asking for 42 million, not 44? The town has to approve Jason, keep me honest here, keep the maximum needed to address the project. Yes?
Yes, yeah, correct. Thanks, John. I'll just say that, yeah, we need to appropriate the maximum amount that we're going to be spending so that we can have the authority to enter into contracts to spend that amount of money. The rebates, they're expected, they're likely that we're going to get them, but the timing isn't definite on when that money is going to come. So the funding of that 1.938 should follow through where we don't have to incur debt for it, but should at the end of 26, if we haven't received the rebates and those are still, being applied for and worked through with the federal government, we may need to borrow short term to cover them. So that's basically why.
So
It's a
question.
smart move myself, because if we didn't and we came up short because the rebates didn't come in, we would have to go back to town meeting.
Yeah, we can't be in a position where we've authorized work that is not the amount isn't authorized, basically.
Right. So question for the committee, I got in brackets minus the geothermal rebates. Should we keep that or take it out for purposes of our report?
I think you should take it out.
Ken?
Yeah, I think you should take it out, John.
All right. Anyone else feel strongly either way?
I guess I'd like to understand why you're asking. Do you feel comfortable with it there or not?
I want to make sure that the committee is comfortable with, again, this is our report. So I want to make sure the committee is comfortable with the language that's presented.
I mean, I understand it, but I feel like I'm close to it. So, I mean, I think the opportunity to understand it is high. I don't know. Anything north of 40. I think it's just this. I think 42 and 44 are the same number. I think once you start talking about that, but it might be mainly stylistic. I personally don't have a strong view and would support either.
Okay. All right. I propose to take out the language in the bracket. So that
I do like your comment, John. You made the other meeting we had when you were wanted to ensure that money would be applied here. And so I like the way we're thinking about it. It's the communication of it that we should probably make sure we're comfortable with.
Yeah, and functionally, I mean, I applied for a mass rebate myself here at home, my own house. We would have to apply for these. It's a federal rebate, and then the mass save rebate at total 1.938 million. After the building is done, after the geothermal is demonstrable, we've probably got to file lots of sorts of paperwork to do that. And by that point in time, we've expended just about all of that 44 mil. And then the 1.9 would come back to us. So again, I don't want us to put anything in there that's misleading to the townspeople. But minus what's in the brackets, not to exceed 44.1 million and is subject to the final bid proposal from the contractor. Somewhat might make him in below this. So, can we take out?
I think with what Jonathan said, that there's no difference between 42 and 44. He's speaking for a lot of people out there, the way they look at it. It's best to take it out. This is how much they're being asked to appropriate at town meeting and at the ballot. And it'll be up to the fire station building committee to explain that they also have put some cost savings that they hope to gain in the future.
And if we want, I mean, as we talk through it, if we want to even put something like the town has applied for a geothermal rebate of $1.938 million that will be applied to the fire state or something like that to show that there is a potential that we're not asking for as much. I'm open to that too. I think the one thing I'm not very clear on, and it may be non-material, is there's as we think about the green aspect of this, because the green aspect of this is a thing that some people may think is important. So I'm thinking more in terms of our residents, the electric vehicle charging stations. We've decided to do this. I don't think we've ever clarified the use case for those. If they're for town vehicles, if they're for charging for residents, if they're going to be.
Let me give you my 2 cents, John, on that. We are required, I'm told, to have EV or EV ready charging stations that cover 20% of the population of the parking lot. So the parking lot is set up for 53 spaces. So that means 11 spaces. And what's in the design is charging stations for 4 and wiring for the other 7, just to keep the cost down.
And are the 4 intended to be like, I have an electric vehicle, so maybe my angle's a little bit overrepresented here, but are they meant to be like you go on and it's 50 cents per charging kilowatt, or is it meant to be
two things. If you're looking at the plot, if you're standing on the sidewalk with your back to Dunkin' Donuts, they'll be in the public parking section on the right side of the building. So the west side of the building, they'll be there. The committee has not discussed the specifics of, are we going to own the stations, or are we going to have somebody put them in? How are we going to have revenues? They have not gotten to that. Just the fact that we have to put them there. It's in the design, period.
In the design and the cost to be able to do this, not the energy operating cost of the energy or anything, but how much it costs to actually put charging stations that you could
That's
use.
correct.
If you want to
put
your business model around it, you can do that.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. No, thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a statement just that's kind of
Please.
obvious? John, we are so lucky as a committee that you were willing to serve as a liaison for the past year, because the amount of information you're able to help us fill in the blanks is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
walk the walk and talk the talk.
I wholeheartedly agree. Well, I think the structure is probably not the best structure. I do appreciate your leadership and ability to be able to bring your perspective to it. I think we're not able to do this without you. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you all. Good. The next part, commencing on the bottom, has the priority table. Again, this came out of.
Excuse me, John, can we go back a little bit?
Yes, Ken, please.
So with the construction, we're talking about all these other elements, and this is something I haven't seen. I'm making an assumption it's going to be done. Is there a commissioning element in the cost here? So we're going to make sure that all the elements work properly?
Yes. So good question. Thank you. This part of the soft costs of the building encompasses the commissioning of the building.
Oh yeah, there it is, right in front of me. I see it now. Thank you very much.
That number's quantified in the overall plan. I don't have that number at my fingertips.
No, I'm not looking for the number. I just want to make sure it was done. And now
it is covered.
The second bullet point. Thank you very much.
It is covered. Yep. Okay. But the good hawk. Thank you. Anything else? Scott, John, Susan, can we move on? So this table you're familiar with in terms of the priorities. We had some discussion on various of the capital projects we looked at back in the spring. We'll get down to the very last table in this, where we ultimately vote and put the numbers in there. We'll get to that in a minute. But these are the 4 priorities that the town is using in its capital planning, that hopefully you're familiar with what we've done before. Now, tax impact. I put information in here that I got from Jason. And the question is, are these correct and representative? But I probably want to put a title on this, projected tax impact to residents. And so this only goes out from 2025 to 2030, but you can see the trajectory of the projected average annual increase. And then there's another table 2 pages down from this, we'll see in a minute, that again, Jason used at the Financial Trend Summit. And I think this was used last week when the fire station presented to our committee and appropriations. I'm trying to show kind of what this trajectory is to the town. And again, I've got some language highlighted in yellow here that I want people to focus on. And then there's a section which begins with as a disclaimer. I think we need to talk about, does it belong here? But general impressions with this chart and the language that follows it.
I think this part's clear. I think the one thing that I think may come into the conversation is, we're talking 20 versus 30, and what does that mean? Like, historically, are we doing projects like this at 20 and we're choosing to do 30 because of different dynamics? Or if we change the way that we budget these things and they're now longer duration, and we should have, that's the one part that I think that will come up, and it doesn't have to be in here, but just the way we kind of think about it, because I don't know the answer to that.
Is your question, are we going to go out to a 20 or a 30-year bond on this? Is that the question?
That's ultimately the question. I think I know the answer. I think it's a 30-year bond.
Well, this table here is representing a 30-year bond. The 30-year bond was just to show we can't borrow longer than 30 years, but that's the longest lifespan that we can legally borrow for. The project, the building is expected to last 40 to 50 years or longer, and so we tie the useful life of the debt to we tie the debt term to the useful life of the asset that we're buying generally. The difference between 20 and 30, I think we have some tolerance numbers in these numbers. John, I think, is shown there. I think that decision hasn't been made yet, whether it would be 20 or 30 years. I think the hope is that the market will change and the interest rates will go down. It sounds like that's a potential to happen, so that perhaps a 20-year bond would be less than the numbers presented for 30 years now if the interest rates drop significantly enough.
Right.
That's a policy decision that hasn't been made yet, and I believe that it would be we bring that to the select board to make that decision in terms of what the rates are at the time. Between when this was produced and when we did the financial trend on August 1st, and then a lot of these numbers were the same ones that we used to present, or I did the presentation to the select board on July 15th. It sounds like to me from our financial advisors that the rates are likely to go down. Again, I think they gave us a really conservative rate of 4.25, and it will probably go down. But it's hard to say today what's going to happen. We likely wouldn't be going out to bond until May or June, and they're competitively bid, and so it's hard to say what the conditions will be then.
I guess my question, and I do appreciate that, and I think about the same way you're describing it as well. I think there's probably some upside in rates going down, and we should plan on conservatism. I think when you think of projects, like I guess the last project that we did that was $20 million plus, with like maybe it's the school. Like when we did this, like
Lincoln Street.
Yeah, Lincoln Street. Did we do a 30-year? And are we thinking of, like, I wanted to understand if we're changing the way we think about on duration to get to a number versus how we've historically done things. I'm thinking more in terms of like risk management and capital structure than I am versus in just that context. And if 30's market, how we've always done things, I think that's important. No, if we're generally do things 20 and we're moving to 30, I would like to know that as well. And I'm just not informed.
Yeah,
Jason?
The last significant project that we did was obviously the Lincoln Street School, and that was that's a inherently different project because it was subject to we authorized, I forget what the authorization was. It was something like $30 million for the project, and the project we ended up being exposed to after MSBA reimbursement. We had short-term debt for longer. And so it's just modeled a little bit differently. But so the debt for that project was, we had two bond issues for that were back-to-back year and 2 consecutive years. So we ended up borrowing about $15 million total. So, and that was over 20 years. Each of those bonds were 20 years. And
the useful life of the school is 20 or 30 years. It's not 40 or 50.
No, the useful life is just as long, but
okay. Yeah.
I
mean, I think these are important nuances, right? Like we're changing the way we approach things to get to numbers, and we got a Prop 2.5, and I think what residents will think about is a town hall number that has a placeholder of 20 coming up, but I've heard 50. We've got Peasley coming up at some point in the 10-year plan, I think, and it has to obviously happen. And that, again, so we might be looking at $100 million of stuff. So the degree you can save $4 or $5 million here and there will matter to taxpayers. And so that's the way I'm thinking about it in terms of what residents may consider, what they may think is important, and how we talk about it and how we're clear.
Agreed.
I'd like to continue on that conversation. First of all, I do want to make a correction. It's a fire station, it's Peasley School, it's the Northborough Middle School, and then it's the town hall, because they're not even in our capital improvement plan. The Milliken Middle School is in our capital plan for as long as it's there, that the school doesn't remove it from there. So we have to remember that it's there, and their feasibility study is for fiscal 2029. In regard to 20 or 30 years, I'd like to understand which will be better for capacity to be able to work on our other projects that are in the capital plan, Jason. Will it make a difference?
I'm not sure that it will make a difference. So it's like our capital plan goes out 6 years, and the next project that would be coming in would be the Peasley School. And the debt numbers that we use to compare to the debt policy of the town, was, we used the 30-year table for that to compare those numbers for both of those projects.
You did use the 30 years. Okay. All right.
Susan, needless to say, the longer you go out on duration, the more interest you're paying.
I understand.
And when you get to the next chart, 2 pages down, we'll talk about that.
I
So
just think
we could pay it down in 10 or 20 years, but we're going to have a stiffer bill every year. But we're going to pay out less interest.
I feel that some people will be concerned that the next projects won't get done. And so we just need to be able to kind of give the answer that Jason just gave.
Yep.
And we did model it at 30.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the shading I have in
But can I make
text,
one additional point? We did
please.
model it at the 4.25%. So again, like I said, that's a policy decision that'll be made later. But we used a conservative interest rate. The interest rates were around 1% at the time that Lincoln Street was borrowed. So it's a significantly lower interest rate than what we've modeled for these projects just due to market conditions now.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay. Jason had this language at the bottom which says as a disclaimer, and I've got it in yellow because I put it there and as an afterthought. I'm saying, is it confusing? Does it belong here? Is it an orphan? I don't know how much weight that gives to what we have here, especially when you bring up the $344, which doesn't come anywhere near this chart. So I'm proposing that we take that out, the last sentence and the 2 numbers below it.
The other thing I think we got to be cautious of, right? Like 342 estimate average annual tax impact over 30 years is interesting, but then residents get their tax bill and it's like, wait, it's up $497 and mine's up at $1,200. And so, I mean, it can be a little bit misleading in terms of not all residents will be here for 30 years. Some will be here for, 6 months. Some here for 60 years. And I think it's hard
I personally will not be here for 30 years.
I mean, I'm making decisions the same. I'm making decisions that'll affect people that when I'm likely not to be here in 30 years. So I think about like how do we communicate with the near term, the first few years, the first year? How do we communicate that to residents so it doesn't feel misleading? Because
let me go to the next chart.
There's a pretty detailed debt table in here that shows it over the course of the 30 years, but maybe you do want to use that narrative to say that the first and highest year is projected to not to exceed $472.
And then I mean, again, like, so that's the average, and not all houses are created average. Like that's squishing the town together. So I think the other thing that would be helpful to say, add an assessed value of X, whether it be 2023 or 2024 or whatever we have reliable data on, that would be the tax impact. And then
John,
people can do the math in their head.
John, this table, you see the heading AFS HV average.
I'm getting a little bit of a creak in my neck, but I'm trying to. I'm trying to see it.
So single family home values from 655,000 up to a million 187. There's the annual tax hit. And
yeah,
it goes by year.
I think I need to print this out to make this work, so I can.
Yeah, you should.
I can't. I'm not smart enough to take vertical and make horizontal with so many rows. My brain's not capable.
And again, this is from Jason's presentation, and it's based on 42,219,900.
Yeah, so basically what this table is showing is what the current in FY24, this average single family home value was $624,000. This inflates it to 655. That's what we project it's going to be. That number won't be finalized till we set the tax rate in the fall, so we don't know that number exactly, but there's been assumptions built in, so it should be somewhere around 656. And then all this table is doing is inflating that number by 2% per year to show the tax impact. And you know what? Real estate prices may go up more than 2% every year in the future.
And I think the flip side is I think our industrial base is roughly like 20 to 25%. Commercial industrial. Yeah. So like, I don't know how I draw a correlation on what that means there, and if there's a burden shift at all. It's just, I think these things will just maybe, and you know, maybe I need to wrestle with a little bit more, but it's not as clear to me, and I have a finance background, so it may not be as clear to residents. So
yeah, I don't want people to look at this and their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
But we want to give them, you know, a level of detail so that they're A, comfortable, and B, can make a decision one way or the other.
No, it's the 344 estimated annual tax they see on this, and that's what they remember. And you're like, oh, we showed you an exhibit. Didn't you look at it? It had all on there. And there were 14 columns and 37 rows, and you asked someone to do something. And so I think just I guess a general comment is to pull forward with a little bit more clarity where we can help people really understand it, so we don't get backlash on a tax bill if it is approved. And we have, it feels more transparent because not everyone is as comfortable numbers as maybe this group.
Yeah. So let me go back to this text here. The language which begins with as a disclaimer and the numbers 1, 2, and 3. I don't think I think they're confusing. I want to propose we take that out.
I think if we're gonna have a couple of snappy bullets, I'm not sure those are the ones we want. I think we'll want a couple of snappier bullets that make people understand it easier.
Right, and again, I clipped this in from Jason's presentation from a couple of weeks ago and the select board. He also mentions the projections assume that the rebates. It's the first time it would be mentioned in here.
I mean, would it be more helpful if it just said that the high year is what the high year is expected to be?
I would actually say year one, if your house is assessed at call it 20% below the average assessed, at the average assessed, 20% more than the average assessed, that's what that range looks. Year 5, something like that, so people can kind of conceptualize what it means. Because again, I even find people when they talk about assessed value versus market value, I mean, they're not as this language isn't as fluent to people that are going to consume the information. So I'm always a fan of how do I communicate to someone at a 5th grade reading level? And I say that with respect, because that's how we train. That's how I run my training organization to work. And how do you communicate that? Because that's what people remember.
Okay.
Jason, what do you think of the disclaimer being taken out?
I'm fine with that disclaimer. I mean, personally, I'm fine with that being taken out. I mean,
okay.
I think that the table is obviously, maybe, too detailed, but maybe reference the table and say that, for people's values, assessed values vary greatly in town, and 71 cents of the tax rate is the high year is projected to be $472, and that is projected to drop to $216 by the end of the 30 years, or 71 cents of the tax rate, 71 cents times each
And I
thousand
do
that your
think
house is valued.
keeping it as an exhibit or keeping it in there is nice. Like, I think that people, like, there'll be people that like want to see that, but it's almost like, if you're in the bottom 20% of assessed value, boom, top 20%, boom, average, boom. And people understand it. And I think that's going to be key, because I think these things, from my experience, anytime you're dealing with it and you're talking like a different language, and you're talking about like Proposition 2.5 and all these other things, and not everyone's going to be able to fully understand like the context of the conversations we're having.
Right.
So
Right.
how you can make that digestible for different and in a accurate way, and then the people that are going to dissect it, that are driven by numbers and want to know it, have information to draw their own conclusions from that they can use.
Right. So let me work on some more lead-in surrounding this table, a bridge between this and this chart. Okay.
So through the chair, I have a
Please.
very simple request with the chart.
Yeah.
Is that we label the axes what they are.
Agreed. Especially ABS, FHV. Yeah. So noted. Okay.
So we're going
that
to
takes
keep
us-
in the whole chart, but we're going to call out a couple of numbers, like first and last year. Is that what you're doing?
I'm going to try something like that. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I've made some notes and I've got to go out and do some scratching. So this table is what we see we've used in the April town meeting in terms of the project, the article that is, the sponsor is the fire department, what the cost is, the priority, and what is our recommendation, yes, no, or abstain, and how many people. So 44,119,900 is the high end, why it's in red. As you heard Jason say, that's what we're going to be asking for, not the 42. And this may be semantical, but is this a 1, 2, 3, or a 4 priority, in your opinion?
I believe it's 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with whatever you want. It's semantical to me.
It's just not number 3.
Okay.
Because that's an existing building being redone.
All right. Scott, Ken?
Yeah, I was thinking 1 and 4, but I'm okay with adding 2 also.
Okay. All right, fine.
When do we come? When do we come to a financial planning committee recommendation? Is that in September?
We're going to get to that. Hang on. The dot points below this, it's supposed to give some synopsis of what it is. So it's a request to design, construct, furnish, and equip the new fire station, including payment of all costs incidental or related. Such sums shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise. Is there any other language we want to put in here? Again, this is what people are going to look at, what's going to be on the screen when the moderator is going to be asking for a vote.
I might say, it will be contingent on a ballot election, Proposition 2.5 ballot election. Just add a bullet point to that.
Yeah, I think getting back to Jonathan's comment earlier about confusion, Prop 2.5 approval is a 2-step project, and somehow we got to be very clear to let people know that if they voted for it at the town meeting, it has to be voted at a ballot, and they both have to pass.
Right. And to your point, gentlemen, ladies, I presume at town meeting between the select board and the moderator, that process would be discussed. So people understand this.
In the report, right? Something.
Yeah. I will add that.
Just steps to put the project forward. Just make it really simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, things we've missed or that are unclear?
But yeah, I mean, I want to make sure I'm listening to both Susan and Ken, like make clear, like, but we are going to make it clear that's like a tax override, right?
I will add that, John.
Something in there. That, I mean, but yeah, I'm supportive of the whole. Yeah.
It covers the Prop 2.5. Yes. I'll add that as a dot point to this. Yes.
Yeah.
So let me stop sharing my screen, if that's okay with you. There we are. Again, any other comments?
Do
I
we still
will-
have Scott?
Scott?
Pardon?
Oh, he's there. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I will make the changes to this draft, get a new version out tomorrow. Jason, you'll get a copy.
Okay.
What is your target date for needing to put this to bed?
What was it? The mailing has to be 2 weeks before town
2
meeting.
weeks before town meeting. So, I mean, I want to get this put to bed before September 15th.
Right. So
That gives us a month.
When you say to bed, the report being finished, because I think we really should have the report submitted to the Board of Selectmen for their September meeting,
Well,
which I
that's
believe is the 9th or something.
fine. You know, we got to get it done before then. So it's got to be done by the end of this month, in the next two plus weeks.
And we are required to submit a report to appropriations also, so to get it to them as soon as.
And I intend to give a copy of this to Scott Rogers.
Okay, great.
Yep. Are we at a point to have a vote on this?
John, just one question, and I'm glad you brought it up. That the cost we have listed is 44 million plus.
Right.
And then somewhere in the report, we're talking less than that, aren't we? No, never mind.
No,
We
I
took
took
care of
that
that
out.
problem. We took
That's
care
why
of
it's
that
in
problem.
red, just to make sure we just jumps out at you. 44,119,9.
Yeah, no, we're all set. We took the rebate stuff out. Okay.
Yeah, yes. And that number was corroborated with the Fire Station Building Committee and their designers and project manager.
Yeah.
That's
Do
the
we need
current
a
number.
specific wording of a motion to move forward? Does it have to be specific?
Let me see. Give me 1 second here. Make sure we do this correctly. Do I hear a motion on page 15, Article 1, the fire station project?
I move that we support the fire station project cost $44,119,090,
Second.
Any second? Okay, let's do a roll call vote on this. Susan Satori,
yes.
Dot Stockland,
Yes.
Jonathan Ray,
No.
Ken Picard,
Yes.
and John Rappa. Yes. So our vote is 5-1. Excuse me, 4-1, since we have Rob missing. We'll mark the report accordingly.
As we
Just-
move
just-
closer to town meeting, can we re-vote it to include Rob at some point, or?
I like that.
I suppose we could.
Okay.
He did send me an email, but I won't speak publicly about his feelings on this. He can't vote by proxy. So we decide that we want to reconvene and vote again, we could do that.
Okay. All right.
Can his email be disclosed to the Financial Planning Committee or no?
I'd rather not, in terms of just open meeting law stuff. I'd rather keep it.
And the other question, I think Susan went to vote quicker than I anticipated. The question I had was, can you remind me who the chair is?
Of which committee?
The Fire Station Committee?
That's Dawn Rand.
Okay, yeah, I was okay. Thank you.
Dawn is the chair. Mitch Cohen is the vice chair.
Yep, thank you. I've been really, yeah, thank you.
So So under the next topic of any other business, you all got a copy of an email from Angie today. It is a memo sent to Tim McInerney dated August 6th on the ballot question, reminding people about campaign finance laws and what you can and cannot do. And it's sent to the Select Board, Appropriations, Fire Station Building Committee, and our committee. So I would urge you to review it and refresh yourselves with what's contained in there. And when you were appointed to these respective positions, you should have gone through some of this campaign finance law in the training sessions. It's a reminder because this is a ballot question that we're putting up. Second thing I have is I sent you the link, I believe it was Monday, to the new videos that the Fire Station Building Committee has put together describing various aspects of the project. I think there's 17 or 18 individual videos of anywhere from a couple of minutes to 20 minutes in length that can be accessed from the town's homepage on the website, that you can look at any of them or all of them sequentially. They're YouTubes. And so it's out there, and we want to bring that more. The committee wants to bring that more to the town's attention as another tool for what I call project awareness. So that's out there. Any other questions?
Just a closing comment, John. You know, this is something that I talked about at the last meeting, and Jonathan brought it up tonight. I think it's going to be really important that we put a mechanism in the presentation to allow people to personalize what their impact is going to be, right? I mean, John talked about a plus 20%, minus 20%. I'm not saying that it has to be that way, but there should be some way to allow people to figure it out in their head, because nobody is really going to pay the average, right? And you don't want people to walk away feeling like I'm going to pay $344.
And to that point, that average is over the 30 years. It's not the average of year one. So the shock and awe that you get year one could be very different than what you get on sort of a blended rate over 30 years. When, as John Rappa said, he's not here in 30 years. So what is it for the people in the near term? I think is really critical.
Yeah, first year is actually what people are going to be wanting.
Yeah.
Jason, I'd like to get some time with you and find out in some of the presentations you have what we can use or modify that makes some sense rather than go recreate the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, all the information's in the table, but how we explain it in a narrative way is what's important. So if you take the table, you know, you could apply the 71-cent tax rate to a value that's 20% less versus one that's 20% more than what's shown as the average.
Okay.
So we can get there. I mean, I think that explanation come out, but I mean, I'm kind of pleased with the comment that we want to show that. I like to, you know, I like these things to be explained as conservatively as possible, so that people understand that nobody's surprised when they have a $472 addition to their tax bill in year one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's just
I really like the way that Scott and Jonathan are thinking about how people will react in the best way to explain it to them. So I think we should work hard at trying to do that.
Right. Agreed. Good. Anything else?
Just another big thank you.
Yeah, John, thanks, man. I mean, from just a personal and professional perspective, I appreciate the way that you've led through this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Susan Satori?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And John Rappa? Yes. Meeting is adjourned at 8:23.
Night,
Thank you
guys.
all.
Night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Right.